So I read Vanished in Vermilion by Lou Ragus. Loud music blared as teens stood around a small bonfire. School was over, summer was taking hold, and it was party time. The boys didn't give a second thought to Pam and Sherry, not realizing their chance encounter had just set off a mystery that would haunt the region for the next 4 decades. So this quote comes from Pam and Sherry. The night that they went missing, they were looking for a party to go to because it was the first night of summer. And so they asked these boys to show them where the party was. And they told them yes and that they could follow them. And the boys took a wrong turn, and when they turned back to see if Sherry and Pam were still behind them, they weren't. And so they just assumed that they had just, turned around or something, but they didn't think much of it. But little did they know that that was the last time that they would ever see Pam and Sherry. So summary of the book. Like I said, they're going out on their first day of summer in search of a high school party. And this was the last time that anyone had seen or heard of Pam or Sherry. The sheriff of the town had, at that time, had sort of brushed the case under the rug, assuming that the 2 teenage girls had just ran away, or were just hiding, from their parents or something. And eventually he realized he was wrong, and that they were actually missing and weren't coming back. And the case didn't really get reopened or a lead until 30 years later when the DCI came to be, and a lot more technology came out to help solve cold cases that were older. So some of the characters, we obviously have Pam Jackson and Sherry Miller. Those are the 2 girls that went missing. Lou Ragus was the head detective on the case in 2003-2004 when the DCI came and the cold case unit took over the case to try and solve it. Aloysius Blackcrow, he's an inmate, and he goes undercover inside the jail cell to interview David Lycan, who he's on the next page, to see if he could get a confession out of him. So here we have some more characters. We have David Lycan. He's the main suspect. He had been charged with assault and rape on many of his ex-girlfriends. He had a connection with Pam and Sherry because he lived on a farm a little bit outside of Vermilion, and at the time he was in the same grade as Sherry and Pam and had gone to school with Sherry for a little bit, and so he became a suspect because his violent actions now could have reflected the way he was when he was younger as well. Kerwin Lycan, he's a brother of the main suspect, and he is believed to have helped David hide the bodies or hide the car that they were in. And then Suzanne Lycan is one of the siblings of David and Kerwin who did not like them very much and had no contact with them, and she confessed to witnessing her brother murder the girls to the detectives. And then Pat Gale is the last person to talk to Sherry and Pam, and he was a suspect for a little bit and was interviewed, but it didn't get anywhere with him. So the structure of the book, so our story starts out with the background information on who Pam and Sherry were. And Pam came from a healthy family. Her family was farmers, lived on a farm. Nice, healthy family. But Sherry's home life was not the best. Her parents were split up, and I think she lived with her grandparents. Yeah, and she had to work in a hospital. But she was still a good kid and never had any problems that would cause her to want to run away. Then it explains what they were doing the night they disappeared, where they were and who they saw that night, and who all interacted with them. And then it goes to show how poorly it was looked at by the sheriff during the time period. And then we go forward 30 years to where the DCI takes over and they finally get a lead. So the setting of the book mainly takes place in Vermilion and in South Dakota, but in the middle of the book it mainly takes place on the Lycan farm where David, Kerwin, and Susan lived there. They had two older siblings, a brother and a sister, and their two parents also lived on the farm. The DCI continuously came out and dug up the whole property looking for any remains or evidence that may point to the girls' disappearance. The first 2 times that they went out there, though, they did not find anything on the girls, and the lead was looking like a dead end at first. Personal connection. This crime is very common for young girls to go missing. It's usually due, to like trafficking and kidnapping and stuff. And I feel like I can relate to Sherry and Pam because they were both my age when they disappeared. They were just high school girls trying to have a fun time with friends one night. That's just like something I would do. And it makes me feel uneasy that something like that could easily happen to me too. So that's why I feel personally connected with Pam and Sherry. And the novel was relatively easy to read and keep track of. It was chronologically in order of all the events that happened from 1971 to 2005. It didn't skip forward or have any flashbacks besides like some of the characters recalling what they saw that night. And it was told from a narrator point of view, discussing what everyone did or said. And the author gave explanations or little side notes of what was going on or a fact that we would have not known by listening to the dialogue. It was usually a fact about a character or a little background story about who the character was or where they came from. And it helped me to understand the case more thoroughly and all the people involved. My final thoughts is I feel that anyone who is into a disappearance or a case that has like little to no evidence at first would really like this book because it was really fascinating to watch the detectives turn literally nothing into something in the matter of just a year. They took David Lycan, who at first wasn't related to this crime at all, was in jail for a totally different crime, and somehow connected him to the girls. And the author really kept me hooked, gave me the background information on who the characters were, so it was easy to keep track of them, like I said, and how they relate to the case. And I believe that if you are into true crime, this is definitely the book for you.